So, wow, that is so smooth. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Is It Worth It, where I go around the world and the internet looking for art supplies that will make your life just a little bit easier or for you to enjoy the craft just this much more. Now today we are going to Walgreens of all places to pick up some art supplies that I saw during, I don't know, a trip to Walgreens. And I'm always curious about going to places like Walgreens and Rite Aid and stuff like that, and then looking at their art supplies and seeing what might actually be, worth it. What would be worth the money that they're asking. And one of the things that I picked up is Artskills brush tip markers. Now, I've seen Artskills around in a bunch of other like convenience-ish stores, and so I'm really curious to see if they're any good. They have a couple of different ones, and we'll check this one out, and if they're actually relatively decent, we can go check out some of the other supplies. But as you know me, for the most part, I love markers. Markers are my thing, and so anytime I can find a grouping of markers, I will pick them up and try them. Now, this is an 8-piece. It was like $7, I think, and so I'm very curious to see if these markers are halfway decent or not, or if we, just the fact that we could probably pick up some decent supplies at Walgreens. Okay, so, but there is only one way to find out if they are worth it. So, come on, let's go check them out. All right, so as you can see, once again, not too much to these. A little chipboard, plastic covering allows you to see them. From what we can tell, you got a nice little brush, like holder, like the brush pen holder. Those are always kind of interesting. One-sided, all they are brush tip markers, flexible bristle design. It says that it is great for lettering, stationery, journaling, and paper crafts, and that you can get a nice thick to thin line as the brush allows it, because it is a very flexible thing. And yeah, that's about it. There are 8 colors here, mostly the primary colors and stuff. So let's check these out, shall we? All right. Ooh, okay, so the plastic feels super plasticky, right? It's sturdy, like it's hard. It's a hard plastic, but it definitely feels very plasticky. It's got this nice design to the fact where there's actually like little divots to where you're supposed to hold it, so it makes it a little bit easier for your fingers to go. So it's not, it's not just one long piece, but it actually seems like it was meant to be here. But it's weird because this would lead me to believe that I should use it like a pencil. Right, so I'm very curious, because normally you try and hold brush pens and stuff like further back, so you get a lot more motion in them. So it's very interesting that they'd want you to choke up on the top of this brush pen like this. But the feel of it is great. Like that part makes this pen feel really, really nice. So the tip alone is a very thin tip. I'm worried about the fact that right now, just looking at it, you can see that the ink isn't actually consistent all the way around. So like one part's really, really thick and the other one's not, like colored wise. So I'm hoping that the ink will actually flow nicely, but it looks like a very thin brush. So should be able to get some nice lines to it. There is no cap, no snap, but it is nice and snug. Right, there might not be a snap when you push on it, but that's not going anywhere. Okay, and yeah, I didn't think so. But downfall for getting things that generally have a cheaper price point is the fact that they save on wherever they can. So there is no posting of the cap, which is sad, but that is a very sturdy, snug fit for when it's together. Alright, as usual, Bristol board, smooth 300 series for our tests that we do, and we're just gonna go through these. So, starting off with yellow. Ooh. Wow. Okay. So, wow. That is so smooth. And the ink flow of this is it just keeps going. Wow. Okay. All right. So I don't even know what to really say about this, right? Like it's very smooth. The ink flow just comes out of that brush. It is so nice. Although when you look at the nib, right, you might not just, it's ever so slightly, but the tip of it's so soft that it's bending, right? You can still get nice thin lines, right? You can get some nice thin lines, but when you start twirling it, that brush definitely takes the shape. So it definitely bends because the brush itself is really soft. But my goodness, that ink flow, watch this. Look at that. Just wow. I mean, that's really cool. I think this would be great for journaling. Right? But I believe that this is a water brush or a water-based. Yeah, it's water-based because it's starting to peel up on the paper. Yep. Okay. So we found out that these are water-based, right? So they should work really nicely with mixed media or watercolor paper. So that should be really cool to use if you're trying to like fill in the, you know, like spaces and stuff. You can use the paper that's a lot thicker and meant for more wet medium. But if you are journaling or trying to do any type of calligraphy type thing, the ink flow on this just makes that happen. I mean, it's just, yeah. So the ink flow on these are just, whew, like I can't even argue anything about this brush right now. It's so nice. It's really, really nice. It's got some great variations that you can put in for your line. So if you do real light work, right, if you hold it lightly, you can get some nice thin lines, right? And then obviously if you push on it, you get a nice thick line. But for me, the thing that is so crazy is how the ink flow just sticks with you, right? That is nice. It's very nice. And it's consistent, right? And the one cool thing about it being watercolor, you know, if you don't go over it too often, like it will blend. Excuse me. Like I just went over the yellow, and it, where the blue went over the yellow, it actually turned green. Right? So it's actually really cool when you do that. But the thing that you have to remember is that you can't go over these too often because it'll just start tearing up your paper. Unless you're using a thicker paper like mixed media or watercolor or something like that, where it's actually meant to be used with watercolor. But I mean, I was thinking that there was going to be some type of craziness that was going to happen with these, because the nib, like I said, the brush itself is super soft. Like there's no resistance in that brush whatsoever, right? So when you're pushing down, like I said, it does bend the tip of the nib, but because it's so soft, if you turn it back the other way, the nib just straightens back out, right? So it's not like you're destroying the nib, it's just very malleable. But okay, so one thing that I'm noticing by just scribbling all this color down and whatnot is because it is such a water-based thing, you do have to let it dry. Like you can't go over it, otherwise you're gonna actually smear the color. And so that's just something to keep in mind. But these colors are super vibrant. I mean, that yellow is still just screaming at me. It's very, 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 very vibrant. The colors are actually pretty awesome. These are just fun. I mean, I wouldn't try and use them in like a coloring book stance, right? I do believe you can fill, right? Like I guess if you're doing coloring books, right, and you just move on, right? Like you just come from one section and you just kind of fill in like this, then it's going to be just fine, right? But if you're looking for like streak-free coverage, these aren't it, because it's a water-based thing, unless of course you're using watercolor paper and mixed media paper where you can actually add some more water and it can blend itself out and stuff like that. But because the ink flow is so nice, right? So if you're just going over to cover like an area really, really quickly, these are fantastic. All right, so, oh, yeah, see, this was that brown one. So the brown one was kind of DOA. Yeah, so remember, this is the brown one is the one we looked at. And I said, I don't know, it doesn't look like the ink is actually flowing to the nib. And that's exactly what's happening. Like, it's already dried out. So sometimes when you get stuff, it doesn't matter where you get it from, they're already dead, right? It's already dried up, ink's not flowing. Sometimes it's just something you have to deal with. But all the rest of them are actually really good. And this black is super opaque for being a water-based ink or a water-based dye. Well, it was opaque when it came out. Once it dries, it gets a little bit more gray. That's probably the only one where I'd say that it actually just changes drastically when you color it, is that it changes, because that's actually comes out super opaque and dark, right? But as it dries, it turns more gray because, like I said, it's a water-based thing. And this brush is already frayed, and so when you go around in the loop, right? When you go around in the loop, it starts trailing off and making that weird line. So some of these brushes, and it's probably because, you know, they're all manufacturing issues, but it's just one of those ones where this is happening probably because it may have sat there forever. Like, we don't know how long these kind of materials sit there, so who knows what the case is. But for the most part, these are really good. These are really nice. All right, so we just got done reviewing these Artskills water-based brush markers, and you know what? They're actually really nice for the most part. You know what I mean? They're very vibrant, very vibrant. The ink flow is absolutely fantastic. Like, it keeps going and going. It's really nice when it comes to something like that. So calligraphy is going to be really nice. I think journaling would be pretty cool. And if you were trying to do some type of coloring book where you're just you're just using it to calm yourself down and whatnot, then going over that is going to be really, really fast and fun because the ink flow is really nice. Now, the brush, as you saw, one of them was completely dried up. It was bone dry, so it didn't get anything out of that. And I would probably say, I know for sure that the black one had frayed tip, so that one was giving an interesting effect, which could be cool. But there was at least 2 of them that were frayed like that, so, you know, depending on what you're trying to do with them, these are really fun. They're really nice. I think that if you were trying to give them to a starting artist or someone who's just a hobbyist who likes to do like the coloring books and just really wants to goes through, or the journaling, like I think journaling would be really nice with this when you're trying to just add some flair or some color to that. These would be absolutely fantastic. Now, I wouldn't tell people that this is what you should use for like a professional setting. While I know that any material can be used by anybody for a professional project, but there is something to be said about the materials and everything that goes into it to make it more of a high quality product. And while I think these would be fun as a hobby, I don't know if I would use these for the career aspect or the career artist. Well, that wraps up today's episode. I hope that you learned something and that this information is useful to you. If it was, please go ahead and hit that like button and share it with someone who you think would actually benefit from this information. Now, if there are any materials that you would like me to review, please go ahead and drop it in the comments below and I will add it to the list. If you are new here, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the bell so that you get notified every single time that I drop new content. Thank you all so very much, and I will see you at the next episode.